right, hi guys. This is Ezra with newschoolbeer.com. This is one of our Fireside Chat series. Today I'm talking with two Adams, Adam Robbings from Reuben's Brews in Seattle and Adam Milne from Old Town Brewing and Old Town Pizza in Portland. It seemed like a really good time to get everyone together since Seattle, King County, and Reuben's Brews started opening last weekend, I believe. And
Yeah.
Portland has not yet gotten the approval to reopen, but we just found out yesterday that we will be reopening tomorrow. We're recording this a day ahead of the time. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to check in with both how each brewery is doing, how each city is doing, what people can expect from reopening, what's the pros, cons, and the pitfalls.
Okay.
First, I thought you guys should probably introduce yourself. Adam from Reuben's, can you introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Adam. This is Hellas that I'm going to crack open now. I think it's rude not to, right? Yeah, I'm sitting in our sour facility. You know, we've got a 4,000 square foot sour brewery. It's about the only place that I can semi get some quiet to speak to people, but we'll see how it goes.
And Adam, you founded Reuben's Brews, right? What year was that?
Yeah, so we opened in August 2012. So we'll be coming up to 8 this August, but it feels very different in terms of thinking about anniversaries and stuff right now. Yeah.
I just noticed I'm drinking coffee, but I'm drinking out of a double black stout coffee beer from Red Hook by coincidence.
I normally have tea, but it's sunny here right now for a change, so you got to celebrate that.
Yes, it's sunny here too. Hopefully, I'll be able to have a beer outside later. And then Adam Milne from Old Town, can you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, my name's Adam. I got the two Adams, like you say here, and actually Adam, Seattle Adam and I have been friends for a while now, so it's good to see him on this call.
Likewise. Yeah.
And I have 2 restaurants. I bought the downtown location of Old Town Pizza about 17 years ago. We added the brewery operation roughly about 9 years ago. And we are, we're trying to open up at least one of our locations tomorrow. And I sadly, I forgot to grab a beer. I've got a glass of water here. I feel like when I'm eating at home, it's pretty simple. I've been going to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread, taking me back to my childhood. So I needed something to quench my throat a little bit. But I might run to the fridge in a little bit because that beer looked really good, Adam.
I know. I feel bad on these video chats. I'm like a night owl, so I actually usually don't crack a beer until actually about 9 o'clock at night if I'm not like out somewhere. So this is like early for me.
I'm kind of the opposite. I don't only really operate in the morning. I after that it's all downhill, and as soon as you start drinking, it's collectively downhill from there.
Yeah, for me, I'm not very productive once I have that first beer.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a downhill slide for sure.
No.
Yeah.
I know.
You gave a great overview of your brewery. I didn't really do so much for mine. So we opened in 2012. We actually have 3 brew houses. So I started super small and just to see how it would work, and then we ran out of capacity there. Then we opened another brewery, our main tap room, ran out of capacity there, and then last year we opened our production brewery. So we have a 5-barrel brew house, a 15-barrel brew house, and then a brew house that maxes out about 44 barrels. And we brew batches anywhere from that 5-barrel size up to our biggest fermenters are 190 barrels. So brewed 170 different beers last year. So lots of variety and different, what we can do through different brew houses and different size batches.
Yeah, I remember visiting Reuben's Brews in the early days when it was just a little nano system and going into that kind of makeshift tasting room. And then I think I came back maybe like a year later, and I couldn't even get in the door. It was just a little too it was so crazy. And then you had such a small footprint, and then when you finally opened the second location, it was really nice to be able to see how you guys have grown, and then see the new location as well. It's pretty amazing.
I was a home brewer, right? So this was all new to me. So it was just the first kind of step, the original brewery. And I'll never forget sitting down talking to a friend and then realizing to get another beer, you have to go outside of the building to get in the line. And I thought, oh, that's not ideal. I need to figure that out. And so that was a realization, is that we need to get another spot.
Yes. So when did Seattle open for dine in? Just say Adam R. Adam.
Yeah. You can call me Reuben. So many people call me Reuben, which is the name of our son. But it's kind of funny when people shout Reuben at me, and it's no, it's not. But you can I'll let you get away with it. So we have applied. King County, which is the county Seattle's in, has applied for phase 2, which is like the first kind of stage where restaurants can have people on site. And what happened was we weren't going to get to phase 2 anytime soon. So they came up with a phase 1.5, which allowed 25% internal occupancy and 50% outside occupancy. And that went live maybe about 2-3 weeks ago now. We didn't immediately jump into that because wanted to try and, well, first of all, you've got people's schedules to like organize internally, just logistically, but also it didn't seem like something you wanted to really rush into because it all happened so quickly. They applied for it on like a Tuesday, and then on the Friday, they said with immediate effect, it is now phase 1.5 has taken place with immediate effect. And it's like, well, we need some time to plan for that. So we actually opened like the Saturday after that. That's what we did. So right now we're at this lower occupancy load. They've applied for phase 2, which increases the occupancy load slightly inside. But with all of the social distancing requirements, I presume it's the same in Portland, like a 6-foot rule, separation of people, certain sizes of groups. For us, it's 5 max. You get pretty constrained on your footprint, so your occupancy load is a lot lower. So even with maybe what is technically a 50% occupancy limit from what it would have been before, you're probably at about 25% occupancy load when you've created all the social distancing and everything is properly set in place. So it's quite heavily constrained.
Mm-hmm. And have you opened all the tap rooms or only one of them, or?
No, just the one. So a few reasons there is we wanted to see how it goes. I think people's safety, the team and the public safety is the number one priority, right? So it's not about opening every tap room and trying to pay the rent. It's about how do we do this in a safe way. And we wanted to start and see how it would work because we fundamentally shifted from a counter service, come up to the bar, get your beer and then go to your seat, table or whatever, to a table service model because we felt that was the best way to keep social distancing in the space rather than have people standing up and moving around. So that then changes your labor profile like fundamentally for what we're used to. And we wanted just to start slow and just see how that happened. So we're just in our tasting room, our main tasting room. The second tasting room isn't open. The other reason, apart from just trying to make sure we're doing something nice and safe, is we have our production brewery there, and it's nice to have that separate from a tasting room operation. So we fundamentally minimize the cross pollination of the teams between the spaces. Very few people ever go between the two spaces. It's another way of keeping some separation. And then within both the production side and the taproom team, we are trying to have separate teams within there as well. So you have a group of people that is in one team, and then on another day, another group of people will come in and it's their team. So we're trying to create these layers of separation in multiple ways.
And then Adam M, what is Portland been like? I mean, in the last few weeks. I mean, since we've been shut down, and I should tell people if they don't know, many other counties around us have opened, including areas of the basically extension of Portland suburbs. You know, like Clackamas, Milwaukee, which pretty much Portland. You know, have been open for weeks now, but we haven't. You know, and there's, I think, a debate on whether we should have been or not. But I think it's undebatable that the density of people in Portland are going to be more of a risk than it has been in other counties. I know I went out to check out some places in Clackamas County on the reopening, and it wasn't too bad. You know, people weren't getting crazy. They weren't just throwing up their arms and running in. But I don't know if that's going to happen in Portland, because since there's people go out probably a lot more in Portland, it's a lot more dense. So, but I'm curious on what your perspective on this is, Adam.
Yeah, so I think that's a great setup, because one of the things that we really noticed, you know, all the restaurants and breweries are hurting in Portland, but I was just looking at our numbers of our 2 locations, and we saw a huge drop off in our to-go sales the moment that the other counties were open. And, you know, my theory is that it made it less attractive. You know, if all the counties around Portland are closed for dine-in, then we're all kind of on an equal footing. I think a lot of the brewery owners that I talked to were a little bit surprised that they treated, you know, Multnomah County, Clackamas County and Washington County differently, because people from Multnomah County were just driving like you and a lot of people that I know were going over to Clackamas and, you know, hitting some breweries up. And to think that, you know, I was in Selwood and with a friend picking up food to go at a Thai restaurant, and he pointed out how just 2 blocks away where we were looking was Clackamas County. And just to say, because of 2 blocks away, that one place is more dangerous than another, you know, I think that's a little, you know, unfair. But I did see the governor now made an announcement that she's linking all 3 counties together for the future, which I think makes sense.
Yeah, glad you brought that up. Yeah, I think that's a smart move. They're probably going like, why didn't we do this from the beginning?
Yeah, exactly.
So Adam R, what has it been like since you guys opened your tap room? I mean, you're not even a week into having your tap room open yet, though, right?
Yeah, we're not even a week in. Yeah, so we saw when phase 1.5 started, we did see some impact to go sales, which have been keeping the lights on right through all of this softening, similar to the other Adam said. But that was because we hadn't opened our tasting room and others had opened maybe around us. But that's something else we can talk about. What we saw is, so we were about a week after when you could have opened, actually a week and a day. There was, you know, I heard a lot of good things about the other breweries that opened up earlier in terms of customer restraint or customer acknowledgement of the risks and the issues. I think when we opened, it was after that initial rush. So I would imagine that tomorrow, if places are open, that's going to be the riskiest time to be open, right? Because you're going to get hit with a lot of people, all with this pent up sort of desire to get out. You know, it's been 3 months. It was like almost 3 months to the day here. And somebody said it to me quite interesting, and I haven't seen this play out in reality, but it's kind of an interesting thing, right? With the politicization of masks, you know, and the importance of masks, you get this polarizing aspect to the public, where some people want to police people's wearing of masks and want to really like be the advocate for it, and then some people want to be the anti-wearer, of these
True.
things.
Yeah.
And what we were worried about is, what if all of this actually sort of goes on in our space, right? Like if there's some sort of interaction like that. But we insist on everybody who comes in has a mask. I think that's actually set in law as well, effectively. But it's amazing how many people come up who don't have a mask on. And we say you have to have a mask to come in. We actually we got some masks to sell to people, some disposable masks, just to try and facilitate that, because we thought that might happen. So we do see an element of that. And then the other thing is I think when we did our survey, about a quarter of people said they would come back and are looking forward to coming back. And the rest were either like want to wait it out for a bit, or maybe they won't come back for the foreseeable future, right? But so that quarter, though, is kind of an interesting number, because our capacity has been reduced to about that from what it was before. So if you're thinking about like supply and demand, it's probably pretty similar, but a far smaller cohort. So then what you get is this attempt of people to come in like they used to, but they can't. So like, we have a barrier up and a reservation type system. If there's no space, we'll take your number and we'll give you a text when it comes through. And that it's about training people into this new way of thinking, right? That's not the normal way breweries worked up until just like last week. You get some people just walk past wondering like, what's going on? Like, why is this person here with this thing? I'm just going to walk past, and it's understandable. But just to give you an idea, like last weekend we had, so then you've got this line management piece, right? If you're full up inside, and we were full up within less than 30 minutes of all of our tables when we opened last week, like on a Saturday, how do you manage all of the other people that want to come in? So like I said, we put this reservation system in. Outside, we have specially marked zones where people can stand. So they'll be in their group of a maximum of 6 feet apart from everybody, other groups. But we found this reservation system was really good, because it meant you didn't have to be there to know what's going on, because we would send you a text when you're 10 minutes off from your table. So they could release the pressure on the line, right, and enhance the social distancing aspect there. But even then, we were getting far too many people. Like, we had to stop getting new people in the line when we had like 130 people waiting. So we were full up inside and had 130 people on a waiting list, and it's a hard situation to be. You're going to make people unhappy somewhere along the line, right? Because you just don't have the capacity.
And what about like the turnover too? I don't think I heard you say there was time limit or anything.
Yeah, so that's a hard thing, because we've never done time limits. But you'll get the odd group that sits there for a long time. And yeah, then you don't get the turnover of the tables, and then you've got more people waiting on the waiting list. So we like gently encourage a couple of hours maximum. It's something I think to think about. How do you do that in a positive way? You don't want to kick people out ever, unless they're not adhering to policies, etc. But yeah, how do you sort of manage that? The other thing that is kind of interesting, and Adam, this is one thing I didn't think about beforehand, was we set up each table to cope with the maximum amount of people that it could. So like, we have all of our tables are like set up for maximum for like 5 people. That's the maximum groups. But what we got was 4 of those tables right at the start were held by individuals. So I think it's good to set up some smaller tables like for individuals in a certain way, so that you can try and maximize your occupancy of the other space, you know?
Yeah, that's true. One person taking up a 5-top would be pretty challenging if your tables are at 25% of capacity already.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden your capacity is shrunk to 10%.
Yeah.
In Portland, if I'm interpreting what I've read from the state health board, is that they actually don't care about the percentage of your restaurant that's filled. All that they're concerned about is the 6 feet apart.
Okay.
So we've set our tables 6 feet apart and have been pretty fortunate that it hasn't reduced us to even 50%. We're above 50%. But that is, that's a tough number, 25%.
Yeah.
And not having a bar where individuals can walk up to and have a drink.
Yeah, you're not allowed to have bar seating, and you have to be at internally 25%, which for us, I think when we measured it out, it was like 3 tables or something. It's like inside. And then, so the other thing is we actually don't have any tables inside right now. We only have the tables outside because there's a less chance for infection outside. I've read. I'm not an expert in this, but so we focus on outside, and I think most people do as well. Most breweries right now, because most tap rooms are generally pretty small, right?
Are you, I have a list of questions that I just had to ask you here, or wanted to ask you here, but one of them was raining, right? We live in the Northwest. Yeah. What are we going to do when it starts pouring? We, like you, are looking for outdoor seating. So we have, in Portland, you can, if you have a parking lot, you can put tables in your parking lot with, no issues with the liquor division. They've been great about that. And then we all received an email from the city of Portland saying that if we had they call them a sidewalk cafe permit. So if you have tables on the sidewalk, they revoked all of them in the city about a week and a half ago, preparing for opening. And people were up in arms, and they quickly sent an apology email. But what they're doing is they're saying, hey, why don't you get off the sidewalk, but actually put your tables in the street? So between the parking lot and basically where cars are parked on the street, we have, roughly about 10 picnic tables. So it's kind of like a street party. And it'll be interesting to see, we're really banking like you that folks are going to be more comfortable. But what we don't know, and I was going to ask you, typically when night hits in Portland, people move inside to a restaurant. Are you seeing that people are saying, you know what, it may be cold, but I'd rather be cold and safe than inside?
So for us, we've been closing before dusk. So we've stopped that as being an issue altogether. Yeah. So we run a very small team relatively. We don't right now we don't have any part-time people in the team, so we have only full-time people in our serving team, and so we have a relatively small number of people, which meant that going to this table service model has taken up a load of people capacity. So we had to constrain our hours down. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the trade-offs. And we may have to constrain the hours down even more, actually, because, the other thing to think about is here you have to wear masks when you're not seated at your table. And you want people to wear masks when they're not seated at the table, obviously. But after a few beers, that's one of the first things people forget. Obvious, it's pretty obvious, right? And so closing a little bit earlier might help facilitate not having to ask people all the time.
I just had a thought. We were talking about that, closing by dusk and limited hours capacity. But conventional wisdom, most tap rooms is you don't open till at least lunchtime, if not later. I mean, I wonder if in this new, climate, people might be interested in coming in earlier, could you open in the morning and people are like, oh, I can get in the morning and it won't be crowded. And plus so many people are out of work anyway. I wonder if that would be feasible at all?
What I would say is, so we've been a to-go store for 3 months, right? That's all we've been for 3 months. And with COVID-19, I think until there's a vaccine, we're going to be suppressing and pressing this brake on with social distancing for the foreseeable future, right? I'm thinking you're talking about a year, 18 months of, it's going to be pulsing. It's going to be, we're going to slow people down, and then we're going to like release it a little bit and stuff. I think the numbers in Seattle are coming up recently as well. So I don't know that phase 2 will be approved, but again, this is where some politics comes into it, right? It's not as simple as it maybe could be or should be. But for me, the key thing is we will remain a to-go store, a to-go beer store, just because our capacity is so constrained, right? The 100% of people aren't going to be coming back because they physically can't. So a big chunk of beer consumption is going to be not at breweries for some time. So in my mind, we're a to-go store still, and we will be a to-go store for a long time, primarily with some on-site consumption. Like the model has kind of flipped. And so the on-site consumption is a fun thing, but we have to do it very safely and make sure that we don't forget the privilege that it is, if that makes sense. So in terms of hours and times, it's not like it was in the past. Like we used to open at 11 and shut at 10 every day. You know, right now it's like, okay, so how do I keep my team safe? How do I make sure that maybe we have teams within the team, that team A does these days, team B does these days? So I need to engineer the hours in a certain way that we're open to be able to fit into that sort of scheduling. Do we have to constrain down the spaces? So we've not reopening one of our tasting rooms for a while. The risk is too high, I think, honestly. And as Adam said, like when it rains, your tap room is kind of closed, right, to some extent. Luckily, here in the Northwest, I may be one of the few people that has an umbrella, but that's because I'm from London. And but like if you look at what the weather was last week, it poured like torrentially. Like here, it's just drizzle, like Northwest drizzle, like we just get all the time, and people get used to it. It's very rare that you see ripples of water running down the street, right? Well, that was our first day open in 3 months. Ripples of water, like flowing down the streets, and no, but you have some tents up, you have some umbrellas, sun and umbrellas in quotation marks, but it works for rain as well, right? And lots of people are just glad to put their hoods up and be out, I think. Yeah.
I think one thing that you guys are very fortunate about is the majority of your sales, I'm just guessing, comes from packaged beer. So as I've been reflecting on who is in the best position or better positions, it's the breweries that are package focused. The breweries that are pub focused, where back in the day everyone said the pub model is great, it's the most profitable model. Well, during a pandemic, it's not the best model. We're more of a pub that has packaged beer, so we get I'm feeling pressure from all different directions to try to open up. Actually, the majority is it from the staff that wants to get back to work, and that comes from that they're realizing that the unemployment's going to run out, but also a lot of their money is from tips.
Yeah.
And so they really want to come back to work, and I'm weighing that out with safety concerns and wanting the public to be safe and my employees to be safe. But if you just look at it from the business side, non-safety side, we've taken a huge hit revenue from a revenue standpoint. We have 2 locations, and I'm comfortable sharing this. Before the other counties opened up, we were down at our downtown location about 80%. And, because it's such a highly densely populated area, which is the first area that people were avoiding, that was hit the hardest. We also had, a lot of homeless camps that had set up around us, so it made folks not really feel safe coming in. And then the businesses that are around the downtown core area were working from home, which was a nice chunk of our revenue. And then our, brewery location, which is in, the northeast neighborhood on MLK off of Alberta, that wasn't hit as hard because I think people were comfortable having to-go sales. But, I guess my point is that because we're pub focused, and I would imagine folks like McMinimum's and all the places that are really, and the brewery owners that I talk to that the majority of their sales comes from pubs, they're really nervous and scared and really need to open to survive because most of us we're at the end of our PPP loan money. So we had a pretty nice cushion and we were able to pay our employees and we didn't have to run our businesses highly efficiently. But now it is the moment where, okay, it's make it or break it time. We have to figure a way to make it through this pandemic so that we're still around, in the 1 year, 18 months that, Adam, that you were saying is probably how long this thing's going to be around.
Yeah, that's a good point. We were before COVID-19, 70% package and 30% like keg and on-premise. So obviously, I think that went to like 95% package through this, right? You're probably the inverse of that, right? If not even less. It's hard, right? There's no. The problem is that this is around for a long time, and what I've heard. You have restaurants, so I thought that you need to be at like 60-70% occupancy just to be able to like make ends meet as a restaurant, right? So then when you've got all these occupancy, well, you don't have these occupancy. What's your practical occupancy constraint when you do reopen with the distancing in place?
I think that we will, in both locations, the downtown location will probably be reduced by 30 to 40%. Okay. We're pretty fortunate because we built the brewery with extra space and we have the parking lot. So I think we may even be at about the same capacity as we were pre-COVID at the brewery location.
On a sunny day.
Yeah, on a sunny day. Good point. Good point.
Well, so that's good then. That's good because I've like here with 25% in the current 25% capacity maximum for restaurants now. Obviously, that cannot be economically viable for any restaurant. And then 50% is phase 2. And I've heard of a lot of restaurants aren't even going to open then because they don't. That's not a viable business model. Phase 3 is 75%. So that's where I understand it can make sense to open at that point.
Yeah, I think it depends on your rent structure. So, two things, your rent and also just what type of food you have. So the rent side, if you're in a high rent district in Portland, let's call it the Pearl District, or I'm guessing Seattle area, let's say it's Bellevue, you have to, you probably don't have a ton of seats to begin with. So you really can't afford to lose many. And then, what was the second area that I said was a challenge? It was rent and food type. So we sell pizza, so that is a little bit easier to sell to go. A lot of these high end restaurants, or let's say you're just a brewery that went for the high end or just different types of food that are better served at dine in, you can't really make up that loss of seating. It's more challenging. You can, but it's much more challenging. So I think that's what's really going to affect people going forward.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's great that your team want to open, because what we did is we put out, this is what we are thinking of doing. Give us input. So the team would then take that, and they came up with ideas that were far better than ever I could. It was the way that we did our to-go store was predominantly from the team's perspective. It worked out amazingly well. But I think whatever we do, we have to be thinking about the longer term, because this is going to be around a while, and it's everybody goes through their own personal change curves, right? Like at first, when this first hit, I mean, we were thinking, oh yeah, the kids will go back to school at some point, like this school year. And then it's like, wow, we could do, maybe in the fall, they don't go back at all again. It's so fundamentally changing to your whole lifestyle. Like the sports, like I was watching the Premier League, obviously being from London, I keep a sharp eye on that. And they played their first game in 3 months yesterday in the Premier League, but they played it without any fans there. But the TV, so it's all for TV, right? And but the TV company put on background like fan sounds, fan noise. So it kind of, and it was like, are they really doing that? And then the commentator explained that yes, that's what they're doing. And it's like, this is just really weird. And it kind of felt so awkward. It felt like it's like an addiction that you're kind of embarrassed about, or like I need my shot of soccer today, but I'm gonna have to watch it in front of, like by myself with nobody else there, and they're gonna put fake noises on, and it's like I'm afraid that other things are gonna be like that. MLB, like MLS, when the MLS comes out, they're gonna be behind closed doors in one stadium. It's kind of, life is kind of nothing like what we know it, right? And
and it changes by the day.
Yeah.
Is working today might not work tomorrow, and it is surreal. Yeah,
it is. But trying to take some of the positives out of this, the to-go store is something I think that is going to be around a long time. I don't know if you had how your to-go store is done. Are people appreciating that? Can you order online and stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I listened to your podcast today, which was incredible. Your survey. I looked at the survey, and then you guys had about an hour where you discussed just different findings from the survey of your customers, and it was really fascinating. And so we
can be honest though.
What's that?
You can be honest.
No, I thought it was great. I thought it was great
Okay.
because I'm actually making some decisions that were different than what you made. Like as an example, we were a full service brewery, and now we're going to do counter service. And so we were thinking that was the safer route. And just hearing your perspective was great. And then you talked about the online store. Well, we've really only done an online store for our brewers market, which has been awesome. That has worked out great. But for whatever reason, on the non-brewers market days, we didn't have the store created for our beer. And I guess we just, for whatever reason, we thought people would just drive up and come in or call us on the phone. And so that, I learned from that maybe there's a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, we see about half. Oh, I'm getting an echo now. we get about half of our orders on the to-go store over the online aspect rather than walk up, which is kind of amazing because that didn't exist on March 16th. And then when we did our survey, more people wanted to keep the to-go store than had actually used it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of crazy stat, right? So that to me shows that people will use it in the future that haven't even used it yet. And I think for us, we've kept our to-go store separate from the on-site sort of tap room, the on-site consumption area. So they don't interact. You come in a different entrance, or not. You don't even come in to the to-go store. It comes to a roll-up garage door, and you come to that. And somebody stopped me in the street just a couple of days ago saying how great that was. It keeps some separation, right, and some safety.
Your podcast actually helped us come up with an idea, which was we came up with this afternoon, that maybe we're trying to figure a way for people to order beer in the safest mode possible. So basically using the online store to get your beer, order your beer from the table, having a table number there.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah,
have you guys thought about doing any of that, using the online store for actual people dining in?
Did we talk? I don't know if we talked about it on that, but there's Porter is a Oregonian company actually that is sort of designed around that, where you can order and it sort of rings up on the bar, and so somebody just sitting on their phone can order from. I think Ezra's written an article on that a little while ago. But you can also do it from like Square. You could set up a Square instance that was the same thing, and when somebody orders it, you get a ticket come out.
That's what we use for our store.
Yeah.
Square.
So we did think of that. What we wanted to do is get this process settled out, because we're doing the inverse of you then, right? We're changing from a walk up to a seated service model, and then once we've got that under wraps, then we can. Then we were thinking of doing that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
That was also like one of the biggest takeaways that I got from that podcast episode was that you're switching to table service, and also that in that survey you mentioned a lot of people said they would miss sitting at the bar, and you guys don't even have a bar side seating.
Yeah.
I thought those were both really interesting stats. Yeah, because I normally, maybe because we're in different states and cities, my first thought would be counter service would be safer. But then there was like an interesting counterpoint you made to the table service aspect.
Yeah. So we literally hadn't discussed these survey results or the plan as a group before, and we thought, well, this is kind of good just to record it and let people hear what we're saying, just to throw out these ideas, right, to challenge people's thoughts, and hopefully it will help a brewery or two in on the way. The issue we have with the counter service is that it encourages congregations of people to group, right? And I haven't measured it recently. It might be 20 feet from the bar to the door. So having 6-foot gaps in between that means that it's not very long before you start going out the door again and down the street. And this way, it's like everybody, we've got the tables set in the parking in this sort of outdoor area, and we've got kegs like with rope between them to like sort of define they constrain the spaces, so you can say, right, this area is kind of yours, and then you've got 6-foot gap to everywhere else. So it just sort of fitted nicely into managing to keep that sort of separation between different groups.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right or wrong answer, right?
Right, we're all figuring this out as we go along.
Yeah.
And so you also said something that was pretty interesting, because I hadn't even thought of the risk side. You guys aren't doing tasters, because that's just part of a natural process at a brewery. People want to try the beer. So was your thinking that having them drink out of the glass and washing it would be too risky, or is it because we were trying to figure out if we keep it or not?
Well, so there's a few things with that. So we're actually using compostable cups right now, so we don't have to deal with glassware. So our servers don't have to be holding, multiple things and the risk of cross-contamination being there. So there's one piece. So we didn't want to put a splash in a cup for somebody then to have to recycle it like immediately. So that's one thing. But also when we're moving to table service, we thought that would severely slow down the flow. If somebody says, oh, can I try XYZ? And we then have to go to the bar, get those, go back and say, oh, actually, I'll try ABC, Yeah. And a good, interesting point that the team brought up, actually, that I didn't even think about, that they've been doing this for the last 3 months. They haven't been giving tastes of any beers in the to-go store, but that's all we've been doing. So they've been being able to put people in the right car, if you like, for the last 3 months without giving them the test drive. and we've released, it was some 70 or 80 beers during the shutdown through our to-go store. So it's not like we're just doing the same beers all the time. We're coming out with like 2 to 3 new ones every week, at least.
Yeah, from an operations standpoint, not having tasters really speeds things up. You're right.
Yeah. If you're by the bar, it's quick and easy, right? Just to give a splash of something to somebody, and that's what you want to do for customer service. But from this perspective, when you're not near the bar, and like the team said, that they've been not giving people tastes, and there's not been any issues for 3 months already, that it kind of makes sense in this world until things get back to normal, whenever that may be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've been to some breweries that are open I was assuming people would stop doing tasters, but I was at one, where they'd give you, it was counter service, you get tasters at the counter only, and then you had to put everything, it was required busing of your own table in a certain section. So they weren't like directly handling it back, and it wasn't necessarily going back to your table. I guess you could bring it back to your table, but you had to take it back up. When you have a seat, there's a sign on the seat that says whether it's been sanitized or not, and then it's flipped over, so you can't sit down there until that area has been cleaned and sanitized. That seemed to work fairly well, but I think it's different for each type of place, And that was a place that didn't serve food as well, so a little bit different, but.
Yeah, we were thinking about that same thing, something on the table that says sanitized or not sanitized, just so we could be clear to them not to sit down quite yet until we got to it.
Yeah, we keep people outside the space until it's ready, and then we can bring them in. So that's how we've sort of done that. We did a couple of weeks before the shutdown, we did have laminated cards that we would have which way up, like, is it sanitized yet or not? But just going back to the tasters, just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
We do tasters, like 5-ounce tasters, but we don't do taste, like a splash. When somebody says, "Oh, can I try that?" Like, we'll give them a little bit, right, like half an ounce or something to try it. So we don't do that, but we do still the 5-ounce tasters
that you can purchase. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's kind of that's where we saw the distinction.
That helps.
Yeah. It's crazy. The other thing I would say, and we sort of started alluding to it at the start, that sort of polarization of people's perspectives. Well, it came up in the survey a little bit, and the thing that people are most concerned about is the behavior of other guests. That was the number one thing people were concerned about, the behavior of other guests. So when we were designing how we did this, we wanted to make sure that that's one of the reasons why we didn't go for a line, for example, and bar service or counter service, because we could take that potential flashpoint out. I thought that was kind of interesting, that most people are worried about other people.
I think one of the things that the government has done to help brewery employees is to mandate the masks, because one of my concerns was, I don't want to step on anyone's rights. The last thing you want to do is violate someone's right and get sued because you're making sure that and requiring them to have a mask. So that, and I think we're on the 24th. It's not right now, but on that particular date, everybody in public will have to wear a mask.
Oh, everybody in public.
Indoor, I think, only.
In where?
Indoors only, I think.
That's right. Indoors.
Yeah. I was happy to hear that too, because, I've been in a lot of brewery, say a lot, but I went to a few breweries that have been open, during this time, and most of the taprooms policies are good, I think, but I've seen a lot of people just wandering around and doing everything without any masks on, I feel like if you're walking around, especially indoors, that you should have a mask on. Like, if it's outdoors, I don't really mind that much, as long as they're keeping their distance, but I'm really glad they're making that mandated, so it's really clear now. That's not like a nice suggestion. It's like, no, you need to do that. At least if you're inside and not in a beer garden. I mean,
Yeah.
do you guys? Are you either of you have gonna have a host or somebody controlling that kind of monitors this situation? Like, I was curious at Reuben's, is there somebody that's kind of checking people in and putting their names on that wait list, or do they don't have to go all the way up to the counter, or do they?
No, we at the not quite the threshold, but almost the threshold of the whole property. You have to come up and log in, and like I said, because it's unusual, we have a barrier up just to try and, because most people wouldn't expect that, So, so we do have somebody up front to try and help monitor it. I think that's an important part of keeping control internally, and then you have to just make sure that you don't create something behind you, right? So you don't create this big line of people wanting to get to that person. You have to make sure that it's an integrated approach.
Yeah, we also are looking to, when we fill up, to have somebody be a greeter and take their name and do the same, text the person when their table is ready.
Yeah.
That's smart.
And that's good.
I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on the future of tap rooms? I mean, it seems like, some people, like maybe Reuben's Brews, could even afford not to have a tap room, while, in Old Town Brewing probably relies on that, right? I mean,
exactly.
Is there a world where it's not worth it to have a tap room as a brewery? It sounds really bad even suggesting that idea, but
well, hasn't Three Floyds just said that they're not going to open like this year, their tap room? Wasn't it Three Floyds? One of the larger Midwest breweries did.
Yeah, they did say that. I thought the article might have been a little misleading because, it basically said we don't have the plan to reopen it yet, but it didn't.
Oh.
It didn't say that they weren't going to reopen it. They were talking about redoing it and stuff.
Yeah. No, we're severely injured without a tap room. Let's put it that way. But you can probably hobble on. But it's what I'm interested in thinking about. The longer this goes on, the more ingrained it is in people's consciousness, subconsciousness. So the longer this goes on, the less likely people are going to be to go in groups. When it gets released, right, you're going to basically ingrain a behavior in people's psyche that isn't going to be a conscious thing anymore. It's going to be a subconscious thing. And so the longer this goes on, maybe even when it does get released, the world has changed in such a fundamental way. The taproom culture won't even come back to what it was. Maybe after 18 months of this, tap rooms are more to-go stores permanently and will never be a very busy place inside. You're going to have, or maybe never say never, but there'll be a whole generation of people impacted. And that's kind of, with all of this, it's kind of, you need to be thinking about, survival, right? That's a business's number one priority, is to survive. Without that, you don't exist. But longer term, like not even longer term, medium term, how does this change or accelerate trends that it either has caused or has just accelerated that existed already? And that's kind of, when I aren't just fighting fires or dealing with all sorts of rubbish, that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to think about. I don't have the answers.
For a brewery like us, who's just a guesstimate, we're about 70% pub sales versus distribution sales. I'm an optimist. Anybody that knows me, I'm always looking on the bright side or trying to come up with a new idea that will do something different, and we'll continue to have to innovate. The brewers market is an example of something we knew we couldn't just sit there and do nothing. We wanted to help other breweries, but I think the realist in me, if anyone's watching this, is that brew pubs are really going to face a tough time. I think that if COVID is around for a year, 18 months, a couple years, I don't think our business model can survive. And so we're just going to have to look at how we can change things or alter things a little bit. Like one example is we're actually looking at purchasing a canning line because we still have some room to grow on that side. We pay for mobile canning, so that's a way for us to save some costs and hopefully pay for the equipment in a reasonable amount of time, and then potentially grow our packaged beer into 6-packs. Right now we have 4 16-ounces. We're going to have to really think about generating revenue and profit outside of at the pub, because like Adam said, this is going to be tough.
And I think you've nailed it there, right? It's all about innovation and coming up with new business models and opportunities. And there's a whole generation of breweries, ourselves included, that have only been on the good times, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you don't think like that and can't pivot into that other mindset, it's going to be tough.
My wife said something about a year ago and it stuck with me. And she said, hope isn't a strategy. And a lot of us are hoping the government will step in and there's things that will happen, but I just don't want to rely on that. I have too many employees and a family to take care of. And we have to try to figure out a new way of conducting our business. And I think if we do it right, the community will support us because they want us to survive. But they just also are concerned with their safety. So can there be a way where they can support us by maybe not necessarily all coming to our brew pub? And that's the challenge I think we all face.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know Adam M's got to go. Do you have any extra questions you want to throw out before we wrap this up here? No.
I was just curious. If Adam's comfortable sharing, what percentage down is your tap room versus pre-COVID, to give most people watching an idea of, okay, what should I expect as a realistic drop in revenue?
When you reopen?
When we reopen with limited seating.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have too much data. Obviously, we only have a few days, but to give you an idea, before COVID, we would probably do about 10% or less of sales in to-go sales. Since we've reopened the tasting room, we're still at 70% to go.
Mm.
So that kind of gives you an idea of the extent of the shift. So that's why I keep on saying that we need to think of ourselves as to-go stores with some on-premise consumption. I think it sounds like you have opportunities to sort of soften this capacity constraint, but here we are pretty suppressed like that. So yeah, it's pretty fundamental. We won't be getting anywhere near. And you might be able to, that 70% helps make up some of the revenue, but what people don't really talk about is the margins on cans, and nothing like a pint over the bar, right? So your revenue has struggled, and then on top of that, the contribution from all of that is like a fraction of what it was. But this is where it's great not being a public entity, right? Honestly, like Grace and I own the vast majority of the brewery, and we don't have anybody to commit to a certain return number. So it's nice just to say, all right, this is what the new normal is. This is what it's going to be, right? As long as we can pay our loans and stuff. The fact that we've done this for 8 years, and I'd have been so much better off if I'd never opened a brewery. Let's forget about that. It's only me and her that need to worry about that. But yeah, I have thought that many times through all of this. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Ezra, for putting this together.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Look forward to hopefully having a pint with you guys in your socks soon.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Good day.
Cheers.
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 Great, guys.